The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and dry marker ink. Marcus Reed stood at the far end of the table, shoulders squared, jaw tight, fingers locked together so no one would see them shake. The glass wall behind his boss reflected his own face back at him. Calm on the surface, storm underneath. Across the table, Richard Harlan leaned back in his leather chair, arms crossed, lips curved into a thin, practiced smile. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "So," Richard said, tapping a pen once, loud in the silence, "are we really supposed to believe you handled the client presentation alone?" Few people shifted in their seats. No one spoke. His drop. Screens glowed uselessly. Marcus felt heat climb his neck. He had worked 3 nights straight. He had fixed the errors. He had saved the contract. Everyone in the room knew it. "Yes," Marcus said, keeping his voice steady. "I did." Richard chuckled softly, the sound sharp as broken glass. "Funny. Because that's not what initiative looks like where I come from." The words landed heavy. "Deliberate. Design." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but Richard stood, straightening his cufflinks like the conversation was already over. "Maybe you're just not a cultural fit here," he added, eyes locking onto Marcus with something colder than anger. That was when Marcus understood. This wasn't about work. It never had been. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. One short message. "Check the news." He looked up just as Richard smiled, wide, confident, untouchable, unaware that the ground beneath him had already begun to crack. Marcus Reed learned early how to stay still. Not frozen, just controlled. Controlled enough that no one could accuse him of being emotional, aggressive, or difficult. Controlled enough to survive rooms like this one. The conference room lights hummed overhead. 10 people sat around the table, laptops open, coffee cups untouched. Richard Harlan stood at the head, posture relaxed, voice smooth. "Let's talk about the McAllister account," Richard said. "Specifically, who actually led the recovery." Marcus felt the shift before his name was spoken. The air changed. People glanced at one another, then away. "I did," Marcus said. His voice sounded calm even to himself. Richard tilted his head. "Did you?" "Yes." Richard smiled faintly. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a team effort that someone is trying to rebrand as a solo win." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "I handled the client calls. I corrected the projections. I stayed late too." Richard raised a hand. "Let's not get defensive." Silence followed. Familiar. Across the table, Emily stared at her keyboard. Jason cleared his throat, then thought better of speaking. Marcus swallowed. "I'm not defensive. I'm explaining." Richard leaned forward, palms on the table. "You know, Marcus, perception matters. And sometimes, ambition can be misunderstood." There it was. The coded warning. The polite threat. Marcus held his gaze. "I met every expectation. According to you," Richard said lightly. "But professionalism is more than output. It's about tone. Culture." Marcus nodded slowly. "Can you explain what you mean by that?" Richard's smile hardened. "I think you know." Few people shifted. No one interrupted. "Meeting adjourned," Richard said, straightening. "We'll circle back." Chairs scrape. Conversations started in low murmurs. Marcus packed his bag with careful movements, hands steady, heart racing. As he stood, Richard passed him and murmured, "Watch yourself." Marcus looked up. "I always do." Richard didn't respond. In the hallway, Emily finally caught up to him. "That was messed up," she whispered. Marcus forced a smile. "It's fine." "It's not," she said. "But HR won't do anything." "I know." At his desk, Marcus stared at his screen without seeing it. Years of moments stacked in his mind. Reviews that praised his work but denied promotions. Jokes that weren't jokes, warnings disguised as advice. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. "Check the news. Search Richard Harlan. Don't reply." Marcus frowned, opened a browser and typed the name. The first result hadn't been there this morning. He leaned back slowly, pulse pounding, as voices rose around the office. Confused, urgent, afraid. Down the hall, Richard's office door slammed shut. Marcus exhaled for the first time all day. Not in relief, but in realization. Something had started. And nothing was going to stop it now. By noon, the office no longer felt like an office. Felt like a room waiting for bad weather. Phones rang and went unanswered. Slack messages stacked up, half sent, half deleted. People spoke in low voices, glancing toward Richard Harlan's closed door as if it might burst open at any moment. Marcus kept working. That too was a habit. When things went wrong, he stayed professional. When pressure rose, he delivered. It had never saved him before, but it was muscle memory now. Marcus. He looked up. Jason stood beside his desk, hands shoved into his pockets, eyes darting. You seeing this? Jason asked quietly. I am, Marcus said. Jason hesitated. They're saying a reporter called legal. Asked about past complaints. Marcus nodded once. That tracks. Jason leaned closer. Man, I don't want to be in this. You know how this place is. I do, Marcus said. He meant it. Jason exhaled. Just be careful. Marcus watched him walk away, shoulders hunched, already retreating into safety. Be careful. It was always the same warning. Not this is wrong. Not I'll back you. Just a reminder that survival required silence. At 2:00 HR emailed him. Subject: brief check-in from Human Resources. Marcus, when you have a moment, please stop by. We'd like to touch base. He almost laughed. The HR office smelled like lemon cleaner and artificial calm. Denise Carter, head of HR, smiled warmly as Marcus sat down. Marcus, how are you holding up? She asked. I'm fine, he said. She nodded, as if that answered something important. There's been some chatter today. We just want to ensure everyone feels supported. Marcus folded his hands. I raised concerns about my treatment months ago. Yes, Denise said quickly. And we took note. Took note, Marcus repeated. Nothing changed. Well, she said carefully, we didn't find evidence of policy violations. Marcus leaned forward. When my work was credited to someone else, was that policy? Denise smiled thinner. Attribution can be subjective. When I was warned about my tone, but no one else was. She adjusted her glasses. Perception varies. Marcus sat back. So does accountability. Silence stretched. Given current events, Denise said finally, it might be best if you keep a low profile. Marcus stared at her. You want me quiet. We want stability, she corrected. He stood. Then you should have dealt with this before it became public. Denise didn't stop him. Back at his desk, Marcus pulled up old performance reviews. He hadn't planned to, but once he started, he couldn't stop. Exceeds expectations. Strong contributor. Excellent analytical skills. And always, at the end, needs to work on executive presence. May struggle with cultural alignment. He scrolled further back. 5 years. Same language. Different managers. Same outcome. Patterns didn't lie. People did. Across the office, Richard's door opened. Conversations died instantly. Richard walked out, phone pressed to his ear, face tight. For the first time, he didn't look in control. He didn't look at Marcus at all. Get me legal, Richard snapped, voice sharp enough to cut glass. Marcus felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Not joy. Not revenge. Recognition. At his desk, his phone buzzed again. Same number. This isn't new. He's been protected for years. Not anymore. Marcus typed back before he could stop himself. Who is this? The reply came instantly. Someone who got tired of watching him win. Marcus's hands trembled. He locked his phone and stood, walking toward the windows. The city stretched below, gray and alive, indifferent to everything happening inside this building. Emily appeared beside him. They're saying the board's meeting tonight. Good, Marcus said. She looked at him carefully. You okay? He considered lying. Then didn't. No, he said. But I'm done pretending this is normal. Emily nodded. If they ask, I'll tell the truth. It wasn't a promise. But it was something. Behind them, Richard's voice rose again, angry now, desperate. The sound carried, impossible to ignore. Marcus watched reflections in the glass. His own face, tired but steady. Richard's, fractured by distance. For the first time, Marcus wasn't shrinking. Whatever came next would cost him. He knew that. But the cost of staying silent had already been paid. And this time, the bill wasn't his alone. The complaint form was shorter than Marcus expected. Department. Incident description. Witnesses. Boxes designed to contain something that had never fit neatly anywhere. Marcus sat at his kitchen table that night, laptop open, city sirens drifting through the cracked window. He typed slowly, deliberately, as if each word needed to survive scrutiny long after his voice wouldn't be in the room. Public undermining during team meetings. Disparate standards applied. Coded language regarding fit and tone. He paused, fingers hovering. The cursor blinked, impatient. How do you prove a pattern, he muttered, when the pattern is the point? He finished just before midnight and hit submit. The confirmation email arrived instantly, sterile and polite. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Marcus closed the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He felt no relief. Only a reminder that he had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. The retaliation didn't announce itself. Never did. The next morning, Marcus arrived to find his name missing from a project update email he had written. His access to a shared client folder was suddenly under review. Meetings he normally led were rescheduled without explanation. At 10, Richard stopped by his desk. Morning, Richard said, voice smooth again, mask fully restored. Morning, Marcus replied. Richard glanced at Marcus's screen. I'm reallocating some responsibilities. Just temporary. Why? Marcus asked. Richard smiled. Optics. Marcus held his gaze. This is because I filed a complaint. Richard's smile never reached his eyes. Careful. Accusations can backfire. I'm stating facts. Your interpretation, Richard said lightly. And interpretations have consequences. He walked away. By noon, Marcus felt invisible. Co-workers avoided eye contact. Even Emily hesitated before approaching. They told me not to loop you in, she whispered. Who's they? She swallowed. Management. Marcus nodded. Thank you for telling me. 3 HR called him back in. Denise folded her hands on the desk. Marcus, we're concerned. About what? He asked. About escalation, she said. These situations can become complicated. Because I reported discrimination. Because tension affects productivity. Marcus leaned forward. So does silence. Denise sighed. Richard feels targeted. Marcus laughed, sharp and humorless. Imagine that. She frowned. We need everyone to feel safe. Then protect the right people, Marcus said quietly. Denise didn't respond. That night, Marcus sat alone in his apartment, phone buzzing with news alerts. Articles multiplied. Anonymous sources. Past settlements sealed by NDAs. A former assistant quoted, unnamed. Richard Harlan's face stared back from the screen, confident smile frozen mid-collapse. Marcus should have felt vindicated. Instead, his hands shook. His phone rang. Unknown number. This is Lena Brooks, a woman said. I'm a reporter with the Tribune. I believe you work for Richard Harlan. Marcus closed his eyes. I do. I won't quote you without consent, she continued. But I want to understand the environment. Marcus hesitated. If I talk, I lose my job. Maybe, Lena said. But the story's coming out with or without you. Silence stretched. Marcus thought of every meeting where he'd swallowed words. Every warning to be patient. Every promise that things would change. "What do you want to know?" he asked. The interview lasted an hour. Marcus stuck to facts. Emails. Witnesses. He didn't embellish. He didn't rant. When it ended, he felt hollowed out. The next morning, security was posted outside Richard's office. By lunch, the board had placed him on administrative leave. By evening, Marcus's badge stopped working. HR called him into a conference room, 2 managers present. "Given the circumstances," Denise said carefully, "we're placing you on temporary leave as well." "For what reason?" Marcus asked. "Company policy during investigations." "So I'm punished," Marcus said, "for telling the truth." "This isn't punitive," Denise said. "It's precautionary." Marcus stood. "You're afraid." Denise didn't deny it. As he left the building, box of desk items in his arms, cameras flashed across the street. Reporters clustered, hungry. Someone shouted Richard's name. Marcus walked past them unnoticed. Outside, the air felt sharper, colder, honest. His phone buzzed again. "This is where it gets hardest. Don't back down now." Marcus typed back with steady hands. "I won't." He didn't know what the end would look like. He only knew that whatever he lost next, he wouldn't lose himself. And that, finally, was something no one could take from him. The headline reached Marcus before the morning did. His phone vibrated on the nightstand at 5:42 a.m., a relentless buzz that refused to be ignored. He rolled over, squinting at the screen, sleep still clinging to him like fog. Consulting executive placed on leave amid discrimination. Fraud allegations. Marcus sat up slowly. The article was careful, precise. It named no sources, but the shape of the truth was unmistakable. Patterns, settlements, whistleblowers. Culture of silence enforced by fear and favor. By 6:30, every major outlet had picked it up. His phone rang again. "Marcus." Emily's voice cracked through the line. "It's everywhere." "I know," he said. "They've shut down the office. Security walked people out. The board's in emergency session." Marcus leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling. "What are people saying?" "That they didn't know," she said bitterly. "That they're shocked. That they always suspected something." Marcus closed his eyes. "Of course." By 8, Lena Brooks called. "They're denying liability," she said without preamble. "But they're panicking." "Am I quoted?" Marcus asked. "No. Yet," she said. "But others are stepping forward. People who were afraid before." Marcus exhaled. "Good. Are you safe?" Lena asked. "I don't know what that means anymore," he said honestly. Outside, vans lined the street. Camera crews adjusted tripods. Reporters rehearsed lines. Marcus watched from his window, unseen, a witness to a storm he'd helped summon but could not control. 10 HR emailed him again. Subject: Immediate update Marcus. Please make yourself available for a call at noon. He didn't reply. Instead, he showered, dressed, and stepped outside. The city buzzed with its usual indifference, people hurrying past, unaware that his life had split cleanly into before and after. At a cafe down the block, 2 men argued quietly over the news playing on a mounted television. "They're exaggerating," one said. "You can't ruin a man's career over feelings." The other shrugged. "Feels like a long time coming." Marcus paid for his coffee and left. Noon, Denise called. "Marcus," she said, voice tight, "we need to discuss next steps." "You suspended me," he replied. "There's nothing to discuss. This has escalated beyond internal processes," she said. "Legal is advising caution." "Legal advises silence," Marcus said. "That's not new." Denise hesitated. "Richard's attorneys are disputing the narrative." Marcus laughed softly. "Of course they are. They're suggesting disgruntled employees coordinated this," she continued. "That you had motives." Marcus felt heat rise. "My motive was to stop being targeted." "That may not be how it's framed." "Then frame it better," Marcus said. Or admit you never planned to. Silence followed. We're offering mediation, Denise said finally. With him? Marcus asked. With the firm. No, Marcus said. Denise inhaled. You should reconsider. I've reconsidered enough, he replied and ended the call. The afternoon brought more stories. A former assistant described being told to know her place. A junior analyst recalled being warned not to sound angry. Another spoke of complaints buried under process. Marcus read every word. Each one landed like a weight and a release. At 3, his mother called. Baby, she said softly. I saw the news. I know. I'm proud of you, she said. But I'm scared. So am I, Marcus admitted. He paused. Your father would be too. Marcus swallowed. He taught me to stand. Yes, she said. And to rest when the standing hurts. That evening, the board issued a statement. Richard Harlan resigns effective immediately. The words felt unreal. Marcus watched the press conference on mute. Carefully chosen language. Apologies without admission. No one said his name. His phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. You did it. Marcus stared at the message. We did, he typed back. A reply came seconds later. It's not over. He knew that already. As night fell, the city lights blinked on, indifferent witnesses to consequence and change. Marcus sat by the window, exhaustion settling into his bones. Richard was gone. The system remained. Tomorrow lawyers would argue. Narratives would shift. People would protect themselves. But tonight the truth was louder than fear. Marcus let himself breathe. Just for this moment. The downfall didn't feel dramatic. Felt administrative. Marcus learned that at 6:18 a.m., when a push notification announced the board's decision had triggered an internal audit, a federal inquiry, and the immediate freezing of accounts tied to Richard Harlan's signature. No sirens. No arrest. Just a quiet unraveling thread by thread. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in his hand, and waited for something to surge. Satisfaction, anger, triumph. Nothing came. Only a low, steady ache, like a bruise pressed too often. By 8, the firm's website changed. Richard's photo vanished from the leadership page, replaced by a blank tile that looked like an erasure rather than an ending. Marcus noticed the detail and wondered who thought that was enough. Emily called while he was making coffee. They boxed up his office overnight, she said. Security escorted him out the service elevator. Did anyone see him? Marcus asked. Only a few, she said. No one said a word. Marcus imagined Richard's face in that elevator mirror. Confident smile stripped away, replaced by calculation, by disbelief. He didn't savor the image. He set it aside. At 10, Lena Brooks emailed a draft quote request. She asked if Marcus would confirm dates and language already on record. Nothing new, nothing incendiary. He replied with corrections, precise and restrained. Truth didn't need heat. At noon, the firm issued another statement. Longer this time. Commitments to reform. External consultants. Listening sessions. Words arranged like sandbags. Marcus read it once and closed the tab. His phone buzzed again. Denise's voice sounded tired. Marcus, the board wants to speak with you. About what? He asked. About next steps, she said. And your status. My status, Marcus repeated. I reported misconduct. I was sidelined. Now the man responsible is gone. Yes, Denise said carefully. And we'd like to reintegrate you. Marcus laughed quietly. Into what? A rebuilding process, she said. Your perspective is valuable. My perspective was valuable before, Marcus said. You ignored it. Silence stretched. We're offering back pay, Denise added. And a public acknowledgement. A statement, Marcus said. Written by lawyers. We're trying to make this right, she insisted. Marcus closed his eyes. You're trying to contain it. Denise didn't argue. I'll consider, Marcus said. That's all. After the call he walked. miles without destination. The city felt altered, like a familiar song played in a different key. People laughed on sidewalks. A busker played a cracked trumpet. Life continued, unbothered by justice's small, imperfect victories. By mid-afternoon the second wave hit. Screenshots leaked. Expense approvals. Email threads with casual contempt dressed up as humor. The narrative sharpened. Richard's attorney released a statement blaming stress, misinterpretation, workplace misunderstandings. The comments section exploded. Marcus stopped reading. At 5 his phone rang again. Unknown number. "This is Calvin," a man said. "We worked together. Years ago." Marcus sat on a bench. "Okay." "I never spoke up," Calvin said. "I should have." Marcus listened to the traffic rush past. "Why call now?" "Because you did," Calvin said. "And because I'm done being quiet." They talked for 20 minutes. About meetings. About warnings. About the way silence spreads because it's easier than risk. When the call ended, Marcus felt lighter and heavier at once. That night, the board announced Richard's resignation was effective immediately and irrevocable. No severance. Cooperation with investigators. The word accountability appeared twice. Marcus watched the coverage from his couch, lights off. He noticed how often reporters said alleged, how carefully they avoided naming racism directly, choosing phrases like toxic culture and leadership failures. Language he thought always protects someone. At 10 his mother texted, "Eat something. Sleep if you can." He did neither. He sat with the quiet and let it be complicated. Richard's life had collapsed overnight. But collapse wasn't closure. It didn't restore lost time or ease the vigilance Marcus had learned to wear like armor. The phone buzzed one last time. "It happened faster than I expected," the unknown number wrote. "Speed isn't justice," Marcus replied. "Consistency is." "Was. You're right," came the answer. "This is just the start." Marcus set the phone down. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady, washing the city in a sound like breathing. Overnight power had shifted. By morning the work would begin. And Marcus would decide, on his terms, what came next. Continue but 900 word. Exact word count. 900. The applause came in waves, and Marcus learned to distrust it. It started with emails. Subject lines heavy with praise and relief. "Thank you for your courage. Your voice mattered. We stand with you." They arrived from people who had once crossed hallways to avoid him, who now typed solidarity with careful punctuation. He read each message once and archived it. 2 weeks after Richard's resignation, Marcus returned to the building. The lobby looked the same, but he felt the difference immediately. The way security smiled too quickly, the way people straightened when they saw him, the way conversations paused and then resumed with a different pitch. "Marcus," someone called, clapping him on the shoulder. "Good to have you back." He nodded. "Thanks." HR scheduled a listening session. Conference room. Circular seating. A consultant with a clipboard and a practiced nod. "We're here to learn," the consultant said. "To rebuild trust." Marcus listened as colleagues spoke in generalities. "We could do better." Mistakes were made. No one felt empowered. When it was his turn, the room leaned in. "I felt targeted," Marcus said. "Not once. Repeatedly. And when I reported it, the system protected power, not people." The consultant nodded, pen moving. "Thank you for sharing." Marcus waited for something else. Questions, accountability, discomfort. None came. Afterward, Denise pulled him aside. "That was impactful. Was it useful?" Marcus asked. She hesitated. "It will be." He wasn't sure what that meant. The firm announced new initiatives. Bias training. Anonymous reporting tools. A diversity task force chaired by someone who had never needed one. Marcus was asked to join. "It would send a strong message," Denise said. "I don't want to be a message," Marcus replied. "I want to be safe." Denise looked at him, truly looked, and for a moment the corporate polish slipped. "I don't know how to promise that." Then don't, Marcus said. At home the nights were harder. Applause faded, and the memories grew louder. He woke from dreams where meetings replayed with sharper edges, where Richard's voice cut through the dark, calm and absolute. He started therapy on a Thursday afternoon. The therapist asked simple questions. When did you start feeling hypervigilant? How did you cope? What would rest look like? Marcus didn't have answers yet. One evening Emily came over with takeout. They ate on the couch, news murmuring in the background. They asked me why I didn't speak up sooner, she said quietly. Marcus looked at her. What did you say? That I was scared, she said. And that fear was taught. He nodded. That's honest. I'm sorry, she added. For the times I stayed quiet. I know, Marcus said. I don't need apologies. I need change. She smiled sadly. Me too. The firm offered Marcus a promotion. New title. Better pay. Chance to lead a restructured team. It's recognition, Denise said. And an opportunity. Marcus took the letter home and stared at it. The raise would help. The title would open doors. But the walls were the same. He called his mother. What do you want? She asked. I want peace, Marcus said. She laughed softly. Then choose what brings you closer to it, not what looks like justice. The next morning, Marcus declined the promotion. He sent a brief email. Thank you for the offer. I'm exploring options aligned with my long-term well-being. The response was swift and polite. By the end of the month, Marcus gave notice. On his last day, people stopped by his desk. Handshakes, hugs, promises to stay in touch. Don't be a stranger, someone said. I won't, Marcus replied, knowing he would. As he walked out, badge returned, box light in his arms. The applause followed him in the form of texts and posts and articles that framed him as brave. Bravery, Marcus thought, was what you needed when the system refused to change. It wasn't a compliment. It was a cost. Outside, the air was clear. He stood for a moment, breathing, letting the building exist without him. The story had moved on. The firm would too. Marcus carried what remained. Strength earned, scars acknowledged, a future unshaped by the rooms he'd learned to survive. The applause faded. What stayed was quieter. And finally his. Marcus didn't wake up free. He woke up quiet. The first weeks after leaving the firm felt unreal, like stepping off a moving walkway and still feeling motion in his legs. He woke early out of habit, checked emails that no longer mattered, braced for meetings that didn't exist. Then, slowly, the quiet changed. He took long walks in the mornings, past storefronts opening for the day, past people who didn't know his story and didn't need to. He let himself be anonymous again. The relief surprised him. A nonprofit recruiter reached out first. Then a university program director. Then a former colleague, this one from years back, asking if Marcus would speak to a small group of interns. I'm not a motivational speaker, Marcus said on the phone. We don't want one, the woman replied. We want someone honest. The room held 12 interns, nervous and alert. Marcus stood at the front, hands loose at his sides. I'm not here to tell you it gets easier, he began. I'm here to tell you that what you feel is real. Hand went up. What if speaking up costs us everything? Marcus paused. Sometimes it costs you the wrong things, he said. And sometimes it saves you. They listened. Really listened. That felt new. The talks multiplied. Not big stages. Small rooms. Circles of folding chairs. People sharing stories that echoed his own, coded language, stalled careers, quiet warnings disguised as advice. After one session, a young black woman lingered. They said I should smile more, she said. That I sound intense. Marcus nodded. They told me the same thing. What did you do? I stopped trying to sound comfortable for them, he said. And started sounding honest for myself. She smiled, relief softening her shoulders. Thank you. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt useful. Marcus started consulting independently, choosing clients carefully. He asked questions up front. About leadership, about accountability, about how conflict was handled when power was involved. Some conversations ended quickly. Good, he thought. One afternoon Lena Brooks called. They're closing the investigation, she said. Criminal charges won't move forward, but civil penalties are likely. Marcus leaned back in his chair. And the firm? Reforms on paper, Lena said. Mixed follow-through. That tracks. She hesitated. Do you regret it? Marcus considered the question. The lost income. The nights he woke shaking. The friendships that never recovered. No, he said. I regret how long I waited. After the call, Marcus updated his website. He changed the headline from Leadership Consultant to Organizational Accountability Advisor. Words mattered. Names mattered. His mother visited in the spring. They sat on his balcony, sun warming the concrete. You look lighter, she said. I am, Marcus replied. Not healed, but lighter. She nodded. Your father used to say freedom isn't loud. It's steady. Marcus smiled. That sounds like him. An email arrived late one night from the unknown number. The one that had started it all. They settled. Confidential. But public reforms will happen. Marcus stared at the message. Thank you, he typed back. For not looking away. I learned from watching you, came the reply. That silence is a choice. Marcus closed the laptop. He began mentoring formally, pairing with organizations that protected anonymity, that centered care over optics. He listened more than he spoke. He learned how different the harm looked from different angles. Some days, anger resurfaced unexpectedly, in a joke overheard, in a phrase recycled too casually. He didn't suppress it. He let it inform his boundaries. When invitations came to return to corporate life, he declined politely. I'm building something else, he said. What he built wasn't flashy. It was durable. A year after the resignation, Marcus attended a panel discussion. Richard's name came up briefly, referenced as a cautionary tale. No one asked Marcus how it felt. That too felt like progress. Afterward, a man approached him. Older. Nervous. I was on the board, the man said. I didn't push hard enough. Marcus studied him. What are you doing now? Trying to do better, the man said. Marcus nodded. That's where it starts. He left the venue as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. He walked without urgency, phone silent, mind clear. Reclaiming his name hadn't meant erasing what happened. It meant carrying it without letting it define the limits of his life. He had not won. He had not lost. He had chosen. And that choice, steady and unglamorous, was the truest power he had ever held. The office was empty. Not because it had closed, but because Marcus no longer belonged there. He walked past rows of cubicles that once felt like a maze of judgment and whispers, now simply furniture and quiet hums of computers in sleep mode. He touched the edge of a desk out of habit, feeling the worn laminate beneath his fingers, remembering the countless hours spent fighting to be seen. Outside, the city stretched bright and indifferent. Sunlight reflected off glass towers, on sidewalks that had once seemed narrower, oppressive. Marcus paused, letting the light wash over him. The weight of months, years, of vigilance, anxiety, and careful navigation pressed against his chest, a reminder that change had a cost, even when justice arrived. He checked his phone. Messages from colleagues, former allies, and interns he had mentored buzzed with updates and gratitude. They celebrated the reforms, the resignations, and the small victories. Marcus smiled faintly. Pride was there, yes, but tempered by the trauma. The sleepless nights, the silent dinners, the moments he had doubted himself. That afternoon, he met with Emily at a quiet cafe. She placed her hands over the table, warm and grounding. So now what? She asked. Marcus stirred his coffee slowly. Now we live in the aftermath. We rebuild carefully. We make sure the next person doesn't have to bear it alone. Emily nodded. You've changed the narrative. People will remember this. Yes, Marcus said, but some scars will remain. Some things can't be erased. They sat together in companionable silence. Around them the city pulsed. Cars honking, pedestrians laughing, street vendors calling. Life continued. Uncaring, unyielding, yet beautiful in its rhythm. Later, Marcus returned to his apartment. He opened a journal, a habit he had picked up to track not just events, but emotions. He wrote about what had passed, the lessons he had learned, the moments that had nearly broken him, and the small triumphs that reminded him of his strength. He reflected on the people who had stood beside him and those who hadn't. He forgave none, but he accepted the reality. Systems could be changed, individuals could be held accountable, but the impact, the lived experience, would remain in memory, in behavior, in vigilance. That evening, Marcus walked to the park nearby. The wind carried the scent of rain-soaked grass and city asphalt. Children played, dogs barked, and somewhere a street musician strummed a soft melody. He sat on a bench, letting the sounds and smells anchor him. A notification pinged on his phone. An article about corporate reform, policy updates, diversity initiatives. He scrolled, noting the improvements and the gaps. Action was slow, incremental. He understood this. Real change rarely arrives at once. Marcus closed his eyes. He thought of Richard, of the hierarchy, the power abused. Justice had come in measures that mattered. Resignation, exposure, public scrutiny, but not in perfection. And that was enough. Enough to mark a turning point. By nightfall, Marcus returned home, exhausted yet awake with clarity. He knew the journey ahead would not be simple, that vigilance was a lifetime commitment. But he also knew he had reclaimed agency over his story. The narrative was his to define. Sitting at his desk, he wrote an email to a young colleague who had reached out, scared and unsure. He typed slowly, every word deliberate. Stand tall. Your voice matters. Do not let fear dictate your boundaries. He paused, reread it, and sent it. Finally, Marcus leaned back, letting the quiet fill the apartment. Outside, lights blinked in distant towers. The hum of traffic softened as the city settled. He exhaled. The fight had ended in this chapter. What remained were the lessons, the scars, and the power he had earned. Not from victory, applause, or justice, but from survival, dignity, and choice. Marcus Reed, once silenced, now walked forward into the world on his own terms. He had survived the system, endured the betrayal, and witnessed the fall. What remained was steady. The knowledge that he had fought, that he had persisted, and that he had lived to tell the story. And that story finally was his. The city had changed. Or maybe Marcus had. He walked the streets of downtown Chicago, past reflective glass towers, past the cafes and office buildings where whispers of the past lingered like faint perfume. Life moved around him, oblivious to the battles fought, the nights spent sleepless, the victories both hard-won and incomplete. Marcus carried a small leather messenger bag across his shoulder. Inside were notebooks, files, and his laptop, tools for the work he had chosen on his own terms. He no longer worked under someone else's shadow, no longer waited for recognition from those who had refused to see him. He worked for change, small, tangible change, mentoring others, advocating quietly, building systems that could protect and empower. That morning, he entered a community center, where a workshop of young professionals awaited. They were a mixed group, nervous yet eager, scribbling notes in notebooks they barely understood how to use but wanted to impress someone. Marcus scanned their faces. He remembered a time when his own ambitions had been suppressed, his potential questioned, his voice silenced. "Welcome," he said, voice calm but firm. "I'm not here to tell you everything will be fair or easy or immediate. I'm here to tell you that you can navigate it and that speaking up matters, even when it costs you. Especially then." A hand went up almost immediately. A young black man, maybe 24, hesitant. "What if you're wrong? What if your voice makes things worse?" Marcus nodded. He remembered asking the same question many times. "Then you accept the consequences, but you also create the possibility for change. Doing nothing guarantees nothing changes. Speaking up, carefully, deliberately, shifts the trajectory. Several more hands rose. Questions about promotion, bias, workplace politics. Marcus answered each, weaving stories from his own experiences without naming names, framing lessons about perception, courage, and systemic awareness. By noon, the workshop had ended, and the room buzzed with quiet determination. A few stayed behind, lingering, sharing stories of subtle discrimination, microaggressions, moments that eroded confidence slowly, invisibly. Marcus listened, jotting notes for follow-up support, offering resources and contacts. Later, walking back through the city streets, Marcus thought about the past year. Richard Harlan's fall had been swift, public, and satisfying in a sense, but the real victory had been quieter. The internal changes, the mentorship, the ripple effect of people feeling empowered to speak and act. He had witnessed justice served externally, but the internal justice, the acknowledgement of his own worth, the reclamation of his agency, was ongoing. He stopped at a crosswalk, watching a delivery cyclist weave through traffic. The blur of motion reminded him of how fast life moved, how easily moments passed. He thought of colleagues who had hesitated, who had spoken too late or not at all, and realized that the impact of courage and choice was cumulative. Every small act, correcting a misattributed credit, questioning biased language, mentoring a junior analyst, built a network of resilience. That evening, Marcus returned to his apartment. His phone buzzed. Another message from Lena Brooks. Interview requests have increased. People want to hear your perspective. Marcus typed a reply. I'll share what matters. Not headlines, not revenge. Just truth. He closed his laptop and stepped out onto his balcony. The skyline glowed with fading sunlight, the wind carrying the faint smell of rain and concrete. He inhaled deeply, letting the moment anchor him. Freedom, he realized, was not the absence of fear but the presence of choice, the ability to act according to one's principles despite risk. Over the next few weeks, Marcus balanced consulting with mentorship programs, speaking engagements, and private coaching. He set boundaries, learned to rest, and encouraged others to advocate safely. Some days, the weight of the past pressed heavily on him. The sleepless nights, the unjust reviews, the whispered jokes that had once haunted him. But those days were tempered by victories, by moments when a young professional said, "Thank you for sharing. Understand now. I can act differently." One afternoon, he received an email from a former executive at his old firm. Hesitant, apologetic. It detailed actions they had taken to ensure systemic changes, new checks on bias, training modules, reporting procedures. Marcus read it, feeling neither triumph nor satisfaction, only acknowledgement that change required effort beyond exposure, beyond punishment. At night, he wrote in his journal, a habit he maintained religiously. He reflected on the events, not as a checklist of battles fought but as an evolving story, one where the narrative was no longer controlled by those who abused power. He thought about justice, fairness, and resilience, and about the ongoing work needed to keep systems accountable. Marcus knew the echoes of what happened would persist, the lingering trauma, the stories shared in hushed tones, the small victories celebrated quietly. But he also knew that horizons stretched ahead, not defined by fear but by agency, integrity, and persistence. As he closed the journal, he glanced out at the city lights. Somewhere below, someone was walking through their own battles, making choices, navigating the maze of bias and power. Marcus smiled softly. The fight had not ended. It never truly does. But what remained was clarity, purpose, and the knowledge that survival and dignity could coexist with action and advocacy. Marcus Reed turned away from the window, knowing that his story, his voice, and the lessons he carried were no longer just for him. They belonged to the future, to those who would walk similar paths, and to the world that still needed witnesses. For the first time in years he felt steady, and he knew that steadiness, that quiet power, was something no one could take away.